It's a Wednesday morning here in Oklahoma and around the world. I am supposed to be working. I am not. I've been working on a presentation that I'm going to be giving in Milwaukee and Chicago. That's coming up here in the second weekend of September. Looking forward to traveling again. I'm looking forward to getting back out on the road. But putting these presentations together that I tour with, they just take time, and they sort of test my own insecurities because I find myself thinking, this is a great idea, and then it's a terrible idea, and then it has great momentum and has no momentum, and now it's, I'm going to trash it and start over. But I think it's going to be good. It deals a lot with the frustrations that you and I feel whenever we're out there in the social media universe, especially. But in the information age, we're bombarded with all this information. It's so easy for us to be manipulated. It's so easy for us to get it wrong or to get stuck in a headline or to grab the first news story that touches our bias. I know it sounds a little clinical when I say it this way, but the speech itself is actually going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of humor in it, and it's a good story. So trust the storyteller. It's going to be a lot of fun. But you can see details on the venues for Milwaukee, 2 dates in Chicago. That's coming up in September, SethAndrews.net, and you can see the speaking page. I'm doing a different presentation in Minneapolis, more of a biographical story at the request of that organization, Minnesota Atheists. That's coming up September 23rd, Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's going to be amazing. First time I've ever spoken there. SethAndrews.net, speaking tab. And then Orlando and Clearwater, Florida, coming up in November. And October, I'll be busy doing Halloween. I want to put my Halloween decorations out so bad I can taste it. I told Natalie I just want to go up in the attic and grab one decoration and just put it somewhere. In an inconspicuous place, just so it's out. Just so I can feel like Halloween is almost here. I love the month of October. And those who follow me on Facebook have probably seen the videos of what we decorated with last year, and I go all out. I've got a little graveyard fence that goes around the front yard, and there's an electrical cord. It's like a 50-foot cord, and it has 3-prong outlets every, I think, 10 feet. So I can plug in all my lights, and I've got these awesome LED floodlights that cast these hues of red and green upon the house. And I've got a fog machine. Yes, I keep the fog machine outside in the evenings, but I actually have it chained and locked so that some mischievous kid doesn't come grab it and run away with the fog machine. But on calm days, it lays this, it's a heavier fog. So it lays this carpet of fog out all over the lawn, and so it's filtering past the gravestones, and we've got these big gravestones, and it goes out through, and I've got this Grim Reaper guy, right? I bought it from Spirit Halloween, but it's awesome. We had to tie it kind of back together because we knocked it over and broke it, but most of it still works, and he's scary. He's so scary that Natalie's grandson, who was 3 last Halloween, he was always, I didn't realize you forget what it's like to be a young, impressionable child. And to see this 6-foot towering cloaked skeleton with green eyes that lights up and animates with a motion detector. And this poor kid, Braden was like, ah. I'm like, it's okay. And we turned it off, unplugged it, took everything off of it, and let him poke around. Look, this is metal. This is plastic. This is just, he's not real. And that helped a little bit. But, when the sun goes down and the fog machine cranks up and you see the Reaper, he's out there in the lawn. And he's like, he's talking in this deep, kind of a sinister voice. I can't remember what the recorded track says, but it actually talks to you. Yeah, this kid was freaked. And so for like 2 months, he would come over after we put the Reaper back in the attic. It was almost Christmas. He comes over and he's like, where's the scary Reaper? Is he around? No. He's up. He's in the attic. You won't see him. It's okay. It's okay. This year, I'm thinking about building a selfie platform in the yard because so many people came by and wanted to take a look at the yard. We were one of the few, for some reason, one of the few homes that actually decorated for Halloween. And this is my holiday. It's my favorite holiday of the year. So I'm thinking I want to build like I'm not a good builder. I'm terrible with, this type of thing. But I want to build like a small round platform and put the Reaper next to him, or the platform rather, next to the Reaper, and the platform together with a sign that says selfie or selfie spot in haunted lettering, and let people come by and they can all take a picture with the house in the background. I just think that'd be big fun. So I got to figure out how to construct that. I guess I'll just carve something out of wood and make it put it on I don't know what I'm going to do. If I was smart, I'd have somebody who knows how to do this type of stuff constructed. But that's on my agenda. Got this in advance of Halloween. I'll get to other things, including your chat here in a minute. In fact, we'll switch to the chat screen. Anybody know what this is? Anybody in the chat room know what this is? That'd be good for the thumbnail of the broadcast. Yeah. Come on. I'll wait. Who knows what this is? What movie? You got to set the rest of this broadcast free. What movie? I feel like I'm on like Home Shopping Network. Matt gets it. Somebody name the film for those who don't know. Thank you, Hellraiser. And the movie hasn't worn all that well. It's very much a product of its time, but it was directed by Clive Barker, who wrote the book. And interestingly, Clive had no idea how to direct a movie. He was just full of crap. They were like, all right, do you think you can direct it? And he's like, oh, yeah. And Clive Barker had no idea how to direct. So he just jumped in cold and created this sort of iconic horror film, okay? And in the film, there's this cube. I don't remember what it is called, but it is a puzzle box. Maybe they just call it the puzzle box. And in the film, let's see if I can get it to work. Now, I know people are telling me not to open the puzzle box. But in the film, people will seek this out and they will buy it. It's actually mechanized in the movie. They're able to run their finger over it. And I was a little disappointed that this one didn't have some sort of a battery-powered pivot, which tells you how spoiled I am when it comes to my tchotchkes. But it pops out, and then it would turn to another configuration. And I believe, is it Lament configuration that opens the portal to hell? And are they demons? The Cenobites arrive, and they are sort of agents of torture. And so people who are masochists, who love pain here on Earth, and apparently aren't getting enough pain, in the the BDSM community or whatever, they summon these demons from hell via the puzzle box, and the demons essentially torture them to the point where they say that your suffering will be legendary even in hell. So you never open I should not have opened the puzzle box, because now, at any moment, the Cenobites are going to walk in, and I will experience suffering that's legendary even in hell. And it's bad. I mean, they got fish hooks going into it's pretty awful. And there are people right now, who are freaked out. I told some religious friends of mine that I had bought this. A souvenir from the film, because I'm a classic horror junkie, 80s horror junkie. What is it? Well, it's the puzzle box from Hellraiser. When you open it, you open the portals to hell. And you should have seen the look they gave me. You keep that in your house? Oh, yeah, it's in my office. It's on the shelf. So, anyway. And it's like the device itself was imbued with some kind of supernatural power. They were genuinely weirded out. Like, when I was growing up, there were specific totems that you would never want in your house. You'd never want a satanic Bible, even if you believed that God had trumped the devil and that the Bible itself, Satan was already defeated, and Satan's words had no power to the believer, blah, blah, blah. having the Bible, the Satanic Bible, in your house, or what even if without reading it. Of course, no Christian ever read the Satanic Bible; they'd be very surprised about what was in it. But you having the totem in your house, it was like a talisman or something. Not a talisman, because I think a talisman is for protection. It's almost like a Horcrux. It's like it has part of Satan's personality attached to it, So the idea of holding something like this and manipulating the puzzle box for them, having some sort of a Horcrux that might have demonic power, and they would feel that way about so many different things, the pentagram and Dungeons and Dragons dice and so many other things. I had a guy who sent me an email. I don't know if I'm going to do this I told him I was interested. He has offered to teach me to play D&D. Juan, thank you very much for the super chat and the donation. By the way, if you will donate, that's going to help me promote my Ghost Stories book. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. Ghost Stories, I'm coming back to Ghost Stories. Oh, shit, what was I talking about? I just totally lost it. D&D. I've never played the dice version, never played a video game version. I've never in my life played Dungeons and Dragons. I've spoken often about it. But he's like, I know you're a noob, and I offer to teach you, and whatever other atheist activist would like to be educated, I'd like to walk you through like an introductory round of D&D. Now, I can't tell if this is going to be great fun or tedium for you. Will you enjoy yourself? Will you be bored out of your mind because I don't know what the hell I'm doing? Will that be funny? How does he intend to teach me Dungeons and Dragons? I don't know. I never played. So, but that's a possibility, and if it happens, it'll happen in the month of October. Ghost Stories is out. Audible normally takes, thank you, Telltale, for the donation. Audible normally takes 3 weeks to QC a book, right? They have to go through and make sure that it passes all of whatever tests and standards that they have, so that they're not releasing offensive or substandard material, blah, blah, blah. So I submit the book to ACX or to audible.com, the audiobook of Ghost Stories, thinking it's going to be early September. And the book's out. It's not even Labor Day yet. So here I am, in essentially what is still summer, and I'm looking at Ghost Stories already listed. Randy and Demery, thank you very much. The, is it too early? Some people might say so, but I really want the Ghost Stories audiobook to succeed. I want it to climb the charts. I want people to respond to the material for a couple of reasons. One, I put a shit ton of work into it. I think it's damn good, and I want it to succeed. I put hundreds of hours of production time into it and thousands of dollars into actors and music and all these other things, book art, and of course I want it to succeed, but also I want people who have no idea about the rest of the work that I do to get into Ghost Stories and then all of a sudden find themselves being curious about things like sacred cows, which is kind of an interesting introduction to skepticism. And then before you know it, maybe they're looking at Deconverted, and they're watching the YouTube videos, and they're trying to figure out what this atheist activist is doing. And, there might be some people, I'm going to get some hate and death, and there's going to be some people who just maybe even ask for a refund on Ghost Stories and say, there's no way I want to support this guy. But there may be some other people who are genuinely intrigued. Maybe they're on the fence, So I see it as sort of a gateway from one genre to another. I really want Ghost Stories to succeed. If you love me, get the audiobook at audible.com. Ghost Stories, Seth Andrews, it pops right up. My freaking face is on the cover. Of course, half of my face is a skull, thanks to the beautiful artwork done by Stacy Fox at Stacy Fox Photography. She's a digital artist. She is immensely talented. So anyway, that's out. And when you see the skull on my face, it's not because I opened the box. It was done digitally. Joseph, thanks for the $10. Much appreciated. Let me show you a couple of other things. People sometimes wonder the kind of stuff I populate my office with. I'm trying to decorate more. Got a bookshelf back behind me. I have these three things I thought I'd show you. This was created for me by a listener. Can you see that? It's Henry and Rat Dog. Forgive the reflections. I'm trying to find a way to show these to you so that the reflections are minimized. Rat Dog or Tootsie is the gold one. Henry is the PayPal. Yes, editor@thethinkingatheist.com is the PayPal address. Thank you. So anyway, she had drawn these. Jan Rasmussen is a tremendously talented watercolor artist, and so she presented me with this. I put the frame on it, so it's going to go up. I just thought this was precious. You know, those who know me know how much I love my dogs. I have my certificate of ordination from the Dudist, the Church of the Latter-day Dude, which is, you know, if you're a big Lebowski fan. So I have, and if you're not a Dudist, it's easy to get ordained. I think you can get a diploma for like $10, but I think it's free to get ordained. You can just go to, I think it's dudism.com. So that's going up. I've had this for a while. I just haven't been able to get it on the wall. I knew I was moving, you know. And then this I wanted to show you. This was a gift. It was a birthday gift by my friend Rhonda Dorrell. You may have seen her in the Recovering from Religion photograph. She's an associate. She works for RFR and does some amazing work for them. And she did an on-camera sit-down. And so you may know her by name from some of my other work. But she did this. Now, this is hard to see with all the lights. Anybody know what this is from? Right? Final shot of The Shining, where the camera, Kubrick, zooms in, and you see Jack's face at the very beginning. Dated, I think in the film it was dated to the 1930s, wasn't it? But I don't know. You probably won't be able to see, but she's got me. How do I get the she's got me in the Jack position. She actually put my face instead of Jack Torrance's face. So, and then she put my birth year of 1968. I thought that was fun. So anyway, I'm going to put that up in my office. You know, that kind of thing. Star Trek communicator. Yeah, got that still. And of course, my Have a Great Day coffee mug. Which sends a subtle message. Drogo's never seen The Shining. It's an iconic film that is also a polarizing film. I love it. I know Stephen King does not agree. The Shining, to me, maybe it's because of when I had seen it. The Shining, for me, is not a scary film, but it is mesmerizing. You can't take your eyes off of The Shining. And there's some strange stuff with The Shining. I mean, the Torrances are such a weirdly detached from humanity type of family. They don't act like anybody that you've ever met. They're just odd and quirky and strange, and you don't relate to them as much. You relate to Danny more than any of them. But something about that actually enhances sort of the otherworldliness of what happens to them. And I'm sure there have been people who've dissected. There are probably college courses on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There's also a documentary called Room 237. Juan, thank you for the donation. It is an exercise, or it's an example, rather, of how pattern seekers like us can find meaning even when meaning does not exist. We can find agency even where agency does not exist. And there were a few examples of conspiracy in Room 237 that are actually so compelling, I immediately went back and watched The Shining again. And it's not that I'm telling you to believe what the conspiracists in Room 237 are saying. I'm saying that it's fascinating to watch them work it out. And then they draw attention to some stuff in the film that I had never picked up on before. The camera moves away and a chair moves. The camera moves away and the carpet reverses. You know, those types of things. There's an allegation in the film that Room 237 is a commentary about a faking of moon landing footage. Not that we never went to the moon, but that Stanley Kubrick was working with NASA to fake footage to sell to the public that we'd gone to the moon perhaps before we actually went. I mean, bizarre, but fascinating stuff. And you can see, you can hear the gears. You are conscious of these pattern seekers. They're not stupid people. They're not unintelligent, but they have, many of them, I think, have just outsmarted themselves. They're so good at finding patterns that they start to see patterns even where they do not exist. And we see this sometime in the skeptical community. You find very intelligent people, pattern-seeking human beings, who are so good at seeing patterns that they start to see them where patterns do not exist, which is where many of the wilder conspiracies come from. Because they're not going to take it at face value. They're going to go and find the pattern, find the extra agency. Drew, thank you very much for the donation. I don't know, if you get a chance, watch Room 237. The producers of Room 237 also did a compelling documentary. Well, the first 40 minutes are compelling. It's called The Nightmare. It's about sleep paralysis, where, you know, when I was, and I suffer from this a couple of times a year, 2-3 times a year, where your body's still in REM sleep mode, but it's not, you're not in REM sleep mode. Your brain has paralyzed your body for dreaming, right? Because you don't act out your dreams while you're lying in bed. So the brain paralyzes your limbs and stuff. Otherwise, you know, if you dreamed you were running a marathon, you would be running all over the house. And so with sleep paralysis, you're almost near consciousness. You've come out of the steps of sleep and you're almost at consciousness. You can actually almost see around the room and whatnot, but your brain has still paralyzed your body and you freak out and you panic. And sleep paralysis includes this common denominator of feeling a presence in the room. You feel like there's a shape, a shadow. When I was a Christian, we would have thought this was a malevolent spirit, a demon, who knows, an attack from hell kind of thing, you know. And the Nightmare does a really good job in the first 40 minutes of showing you what it's like for the sufferer of sleep paralysis. Sometimes I'll end up making noise like, oh, you know, and Natalie has to wake me up. And it's become this story that we kind of tell. I'm glad Natalie was there, you know, to wake me up. Honey. The film totally then wastes the opportunity to get into the science of sleep paralysis and to help people understand and hopefully get through the phenomenon of sleep paralysis and the fears caused, the panic caused by it. It's a completely wasted opportunity. I think it's still free on Netflix if you're a Netflix subscriber. So watch like the first 40 minutes and then realize that the rest of it is just more of the same stuff. They just repeat these examples and anecdotal stuff over and over and over and over. It's a wasted opportunity. The first 40 minutes, though, are fantastic. Ariel, thank you very much for the kind words and for the donation. Let's see. Let's look at the chat room and respond for a few minutes to our chatters, chat people. Deanna said, have you read the sequel to The Shining where Danny is an adult? I've heard it. I think it's called Dr. Sleep. I've never read it. My friend Corey did. He said it was okay. So because he was not uber enthused about it, I didn't really jump into it. Andrea says, what I don't understand about sleep paralysis is the commonality of a presence. Why is that the same for most? What a great question. And a question that I think the documentary filmmakers should have approached and tried to answer. I call it looming. For me, there's a shape. It's a blurred shape. I can't focus it, and it's right over my bed. All right, so I'm on my back, and I can't move. I become aware of the fact that I can't move and there's something looming over me. And I start to panic because I can't move. So your heart rate goes up. You're breathing heavier. You are then more aware that you can't move, and it just gets worse and worse and worse until finally, you yell out or something, and someone wakes you. There are apparently, and I think it lasts a couple of minutes total, but there are some people who this goes on for them every night, and it lasts like an hour. And I can't imagine. And I would be hugely curious to know why. Is it because, you know what? I can't even hypothesize as to why there would be a commonality of a presence in the room. Heather says, free on Netflix so long as you pay $15. But I love Netflix. We pulled the plug on satellite 5 years ago. We were nervous about it because we're like, well, we're going to lose all these channels. The truth was we were watching almost nothing that was being offered, to the tune of, what were we paying, $100 and whatever dollars a freaking month for television? And so we just went to a Roku box and Netflix and Hulu. And then if we want to rent something, it's like, I can get the whole season of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul for what, 20-something bucks for the whole season? I mean, I'll do that. It was so the cable company calls. They always target people who move into a new house. And so we moved in March of 2017. And so they're like, hey, we've got a great deal where we can offer you over, 100 channels for only $35 a month. And I was thinking, well, that'd be kind of nice, because there were a few things that it'd be nice to have. It'd be nice to have the local channels that come in through the cable feed, because having the antenna is a little spotty. Local stuff's a little bit spotty. We don't watch a ton of local TV, but when severe weather hits in the state of Oklahoma, that would be nice. $35, huh? Well, I'm all right. Tell me more. And they say, well, okay, great. Now, how many TVs do you have? Well, I'd like to be able to feed, the TV here and here. Okay, well, that's 2 TVs. Okay, so now you're going to need, do you want a DVR with those? The receiver and the DVR, or just the receiver? Because those are extra. Okay, wait a minute. And so now I'm starting to add. Okay, and then the service fee for the DVR is what? Is how much? Oh, you want this channel? Well, that's going to be extra. And before it was over, it's $120, $130 a month. I was just like, I'm sorry. There's just no reason for that. I don't know how cable and satellite are still alive in the age of the internet and Roku boxes, Netflix, whatever. Because it has changed how we watch television, and we binge a lot more. We'll change our selections of what we watch if something is not available on a service that we've paid for. But at the same time, I mean, we still got a ton of options. I mean, have you guys used cable satellite? Have you found a package that isn't $1,500 a year to watch freaking television? And how are they surviving? I would think, you probably have to try to compete by bringing the costs down, being more competitive. And instead, everybody just seems to be in a holding pattern. Cable company and the satellite companies just seem to be charging as much or more. I do not get it. I do not get it. Muhammad says, I need your suggestion because I'm an atheist living in Oman. How can I contact you? Seth at thethinkingatheist.com is a great way to contact me. Eric says, great job on the Ghost Stories audiobook. I Know Your Name. I Know Your Name is the 8th story in the book. You know what's interesting about that, Eric? That story was kind of an afterthought when I first started it. I was like, well, I'd kind of like to do this. It'll be short and sweet and different. And my voice appears nowhere in the project. I just wrote it, and then I went out and auditioned and hired actors to play. I Know Your Name is the story of a radio DJ. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but it's a radio DJ who's a complete jerk. And, I didn't want to be the radio. I mean, I can do radio DJ. Q107 FM, partly sunny sky, 75 degrees, a beautiful day tomorrow. Don't forget to be listening to The Secret Song tomorrow morning at 7:20. You could win a brand new Chevy Camaro. I can do that, right? But I didn't want to, I wanted variety. So I found a guy who kind of does that late night talk radio snark. And out of probably 80 auditions, he just nailed it. His name is James Milton. And so he was my Tommy Shane. Tommy Shane, AM 770 After Dark, and he does a Halloween show. And things go horribly awry. And this was kind of an afterthought for me. And the more I got the auditions in, and the more I chose the actors, and the more I began to put the pieces together, the more I realized that this may be one of my favorite stories in the book. It's so weird. I told James this. I'm like, it's weird. I thought this was just a bonus, like an extra, like whatever, let's throw this on. It'll be interesting and kind of fun. And instead, it turned out to be genuinely scary. I played it for Natalie, and she almost can't listen to it. She almost can't about 6-7 minutes in, she almost can't finish it because well, I can't tell you why. But yeah, that's chapter 8 in Ghost Stories. Thanks for that. That makes me feel so good. It makes me feel like, the material's going to resonate with people out there. And man, I sure hope people on Audible find it and enjoy it just as much. And maybe it'll, carry us through. Maybe September, October will be big Ghost Stories type material is going to fly off the Audible shelves, so to speak. So, why do I have the name of an Egyptian god raised as a Christian? I know Seth was some kind of a badass god. I did not know if Seth was Egyptian or not. But if you want to know why I'm a Christian kid named Seth, it's because Seth was the third son of Adam. It was Cain and Abel and Seth. Seth was the anointed one. So I had a biblical name. My twin sister's name is Beth or Elizabeth. So yes, I have a twin sister. She's 5 minutes older, Seth and Beth. And people to this day will still ask me if we are identical. Basic biology missing from this question. Basic biology missing from that question. AR says, what do you think about Jordan Peterson and his discussions with Matt Dillahunty and Sam Harris? I haven't seen the one with Harris. I heard Harris really held his feet to the fire, which I love. I did see the one with Matt Dillahunty. Matt held his feet to the fire, which I loved. I think it's fantastic on the front end. Jordan Peterson's star begins to shine. He has a best-selling book. He has a big following. So he's invited on stage to bring his ideas to light for better and for worse. I will say that once the bad ideas have been exposed, and we're seeing Jordan Peterson's reputation really start to falter, now having him on stage is harder to defend or get excited about. I don't have a problem inviting bad ideas on stage, to if they can be exposed under the white hot light of scrutiny, with a few caveats. The people are operating in good faith, and we're not simply, fueling the clickbait mechanisms of really, really awful human beings. I don't know if Jordan Peterson is or not. He seems like he's probably a good guy, just some unfortunate ideas. But now that more and more we're seeing that he's just not, he's not the champion we want, it's going to be harder and harder to justify using that slot on a stage in favor of maybe somebody else. But, if he's bringing crowds in, and those crowds will be exposed to the criticisms of people like Sam Harris and Matt Dillahunty, and let the organizers populate their events however they want, and let people buy the tickets, and let the chips fall where they may. There was a horror movie, according to Landon, with a demon named Seth. Seth is not a sinister name. I mean, and Seth, it doesn't really conjure up the feelings of fear and dread that I would think that a demon should. Roy, thank you very much for the kind words. Soul says, my girlfriend and I took a road trip out west. We listened to a bunch of your talk. We ended up having a big, long talk about free speech, culminating in a discussion about punching Nazis. I have a 2-part podcast from, I think, last year called When to Punch a Nazi. We were talking about speech and the response to speech, and is speech violence, and so is a moral response to hate speech to preemptively punch somebody. Kat, thank you very much for the donation. There's a narrative out there that if you don't punch Nazis, preemptively punch somebody who's speaking, that you are deferring, and that you're weak, and that you're singing. What I normally see is, yeah, we tried the all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, the love fest, and that's not at all what we're saying when we say we're not going to go out and preemptively physically strike people who are using awful speech. They want to paint that as, well, you're just a, mamby-pamby, go-along enabler, or you're weak, or you just think love conquers all, and you have this sort of childlike view of how we'll fight the worst elements in humanity. And of course, no one's saying that we can't be strong, and no one's saying we shouldn't be even forceful in how we go out and act and react. But if someone is speaking and I go out and deck him in the face, I've just surrendered all the high ground, and I've gifted an illusion of higher ground to the person I just decked, who can now play the martyr card forever. Well, they'll play the martyr card whatever you do. These are the type of excuses that I hear. I'm sorry, I do not want to live in a world where people subjectively decide which speech is violence and then decide to take matters into their own hands by physically lashing out, punching and kicking the people who they then disagree with in the arena of ideas. Do you want to live in that world? If they come after us physically, if there's a physical threat, that's a different story. If they are saying, I hate this demographic, sorry. I mean, we counter that. We speak passionately and with verve and with the moral high ground against it. We drown out this sort of, with hate, with a greater and more enlightened perspective. And we don't defeat hate by going out and taking a baseball bat to the guy's face. I'm sorry. I just do not. I just don't. We came to the conclusion we have a fundamentally different view of violence. She sees it as a red line not to be crossed. I see it as a tool that has uses. Well, if someone breaks into my home for the purpose of whatever, threatening my life, my family, my property, whatever, and I violently react, all right? I mean, I've got a 380 over here. Let's say someone breaks into my house while I'm here, and I shoot him in the chest, okay? I have used violence, but that violence was a response to a threat, a potential threat against my life and family. Violence is an appropriate response in specific situations, but I don't like the idea of violence as a sort of preemptive strike. Is that who we are? Is that what we want to be? If someone says, one day I'm going to break into your house, you just look out, and I pull out a gun and shoot him. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. That's just not how we roll. If someone uses lethal force to save their own lives or protect human life, or if there's a genuine physical threat happening at the time, if you think about our role against the Nazis in the Second World War, who were bent on world domination, and this was an active military exercise. This was essentially an infestation going out into the rest of the world. It was only violence. It was only a physical response that was going to stop that. But it was already happening as a military exercise. So the idea that speech is violence, that a word spoken is the same as a bullet fired, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. Dannon says, what do you say to someone who thinks that when something bad happens to them, they're being punished by their God for being disobedient? My mom feels that way and she's miserable. That's tragic. But it's how the church operates. The church tells us we're broken and that everything's our fault. Tells us we're sick so it can sell us the cure and keep us dependent on the church. And religion is the God virus. Honestly, you should read The God Virus by Dr. Darrell Ray. Don't read it to your mom, but read it for yourself. And it may help you in how you approach your mom. You can't control how she thinks. I think the only way you can perhaps combat that is to verbally encourage her that she's beautiful and that her life has value and that she is, you don't think she is broken. I mean, make it about your opinion of her. I don't think all this is your fault. I think you have worth and value and your life can be amazing and you deserve happiness, Roger, thank you for the donation. You care to comment on the PA Catholic Church scandal? Hell yeah. The Pope just tweeted that we need to protect families. I had responded that it's always interesting when lifelong or avowed celibates tell people how to have sex. They tell them about pregnancy, child rearing, and child advocacy. It was the Richard Dawkins Foundation that I retweeted earlier that was saying, it's time for people to leave the Catholic Church. Was it Tom Petty who once said that if I was part of a club and the club was abusing children and I found out about it, I'd quit the club? The BBC actually contacted me about the possibility of being a commenter for a broadcast next weekend. I don't think it's going to happen because there's not a BBC affiliate in Oklahoma that I know of. They're like, can you get to an affiliate so we can satellite you in? And I'm like, you say BBC in Oklahoma, they think it's a brand of shotgun. But they were like, well, do you think the Catholic Church is still relevant? I was like, well, no. I understand the attraction of the Catholic Church, the structure it provides, the tradition, blah, blah, blah. But is there, the Catholic Church is essentially it's a fear cult because it teaches health theology. Most practicing Catholics have no idea what's in the Bible, nor do they care. 50% of Catholics surveyed don't even follow the Catholic Church's own teachings on contraception. I mean, the Pope said it, but screw it. Like they've just completely ignored the Supreme Pontiffs and the Church's own edicts about using condoms and the pill and all that. So for them, I see the Church as kind of a social exercise and perhaps a comfort mechanism, but it's not like they spend the rest of their life or the rest of their week. Most people thinking about Catholicism, quite frankly, they go, they punch their ticket, they come out, they feel like they did their spiritual duty, and then they live secular lives. We don't need the Catholic Church, this anti-science institution, this institution that is still blaming gay people for pedophiles, this institution that didn't embrace the fact of evolution until John Paul II back in 1980. Was it 86 or 96? What the hell? This institution rife with financial corruption and bleeding into political overreach. And, oh, come on. We can have our myths and enjoy our myths, but we sure don't have to preach them as fact. We don't need hell and purgatory. We don't need Catholic guilt. We don't need nuns rapping kids on the knuckles because they're using their left hand instead of their right hand. There's so much about the Catholic Church that is absolutely wrong. It belongs in the history books, not as part of an enlightened society. Time for the Catholic Church to just go away, and we'll talk about way back then when there was a Catholic Church. We don't need it. Whatever good the Catholic Church does or provides, we can do and do better without the superstitious backstory. Anybody else? Let's take a look. Oh, my goodness. Forgive me for not knowing how to pronounce your name. Annexon? Annexon? Somebody give me a phonetic because I'd sure like to get that right. How do you manage with the understanding that your meaning and value of life is just a chemical deception of your brain? You mean depiction? I don't see the meaning that I construct. I don't see as a deception. The meaning that I construct is just a personal assigned meaning. I've assigned a meaning to my own existence. And the fact that I am conscious because of brain chemistry doesn't make my consciousness any less wonderful or valued or precious or amazing. And what was the tweet I put out regarding this life being temporary? And some people saying, especially people like Ken Ham, that your life's meaningless because it's finite. You know, I can enjoy a delicious meal, and then it will have a final bite, and I'll be hungry again later. But was the meal still not delicious? I can watch a classic movie. It has a final frame, and the end credits are going to roll, but is the movie not still a classic? I can enjoy a favorite piece of music. It will have a final note. Is the music still not beautiful? I can live a finite life, knowing it will one day come to an end, but is that life still not precious? And that's exactly how I feel. And, you know, I don't need it to be the product of some spiritual membrane or third-party consciousness or any of that stuff. Why? I don't require that. I'm conscious, I'm aware, I'm alive, and I'm thankful to be so. Michael says, pineapples on pizza. The answer is an unequivocal yes. 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 Hawaiian pizza is delicious. Sorry, I've got the sniffles here. My torture is beginning, sending me the allergies. Pollen and mold. A few more of these. Do you enjoy these live streams? They're different, but I enjoy doing them. So I'll let you cast your vote. Yay or nay, if you'd like to see more of these. I can do a few of these a month, you know, maybe one a week, just on the side for those who'd like to keep them rolling in the background and chat along as we record them live. Pizza. Kevin said, it's nice to have a chance to speak with you. I've recently discovered my faith to be a hoax. That it is, and I put a lot of myself into it. Andy said, have you managed to use the word numpty in conversation? Oh, yeah, I was trying to learn British slang and swear words. I have not. I'll make that a goal today. I'll try to remember to tweet something with the word numpty in it. I am going to probably stream Resident Evil 7 later today. If you'd like to see footage of those live streams, the Twitch page is twitch.tv/Seth Andrews TTA, or I try to put the best streams on my personal website, sethandrews.net. You'll see a Gaming Badly section, and I've got video clips there, and you can go and see those. Resident Evil 7 is bent. It is bent. It is it's the beginning of the game. I get in, I'm looking for someone I hadn't seen in 3 years, a woman who looks just like Tracy Moody, the atheist activist and a friend of mine. And I told her so. I took a screenshot. I'm like, Tracy, by the way, you are a character in Resident Evil 7. All of a sudden, she shows up, and she turns. She becomes evil. It just pops out of her all of a sudden, and she takes a chainsaw and cuts off my left hand. Okay? The hand, arterial spray coming out of the hand. I'm not trying to gross you out. Arterial spray is coming out of the hand, and then as I'm looking at it, on its own, as I'm holding it, it just sort of stops bleeding. It just stops. It just stopped bleeding on its own. You know, it's like a paper cut. It just stops occasionally on its own. You just got to give it a little time. All right, so here I am. I have no hand. Go around through the rest of the house. Before you know it, I am knocked over the head and carried away by what looks like the cannibal family from Texas Chainsaw, and it is brought to my attention that I have a left hand. How do I have a left hand? She cut it off with a chainsaw. This is the game. This is the temperature of Resident Evil 7. I look at the chat room. I go, how do I have a hand? And they go, look at the staples all around my wrist. are staples, and my hand works perfectly. So apparently the Manson family, or whatever you call them, the cannibal family who were eating all the horrible stuff, when they absconded with me, they grabbed my appendage and they stapled my hand back onto my wrist, and they did so with such skill that it now apparently works just fine. This is my kind of video game. This is my kind of video game. So anyway, I've been sneaking through walls and in cellars, and it's actually great fun. It's very dark. Yeah, I don't know if it's quite as dark as oh shit, what was the game I just finished? Outlast 2. But it's dark. Twitch.tv/Seth Andrews TTA, or just go to SethAndrews.net. Demery says, I'm going to lose my relationship with my mother because of your atheism. Do you care to say anything else about that? Maybe people in the comment section would join me with some advice, or maybe just some encouragement for you. I'd hate to see it happen. Many times families force our hands. It becomes about boundaries and respect. Thomas, thank you for the donation. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Landon is right. Yeah, you heal yourself with goop juice. You actually just pour droplets of something on any wound in Resident Evil 7, and whatever that stuff is, I want to go to CVS Pharmacy and get it because it's amazing. It just heals everything. Just heals everything. I'm going to give Demery just a second in case there's another message coming in, because I want to do due diligence. Sean says, reach out to Arian Foster, a great podcast. I think you guys would mesh pretty well. Forgive my ignorance. What's the show? What's the topic? Demery, because of your atheism, your mother may cut you off. It may cost you your relationship. You understand, though, that this is not your fault. Right? It's if someone leaves you because of a disagreement, because you don't line up on a specific topic, and this person says, I am no longer your mother, father, sibling, friend, whatever. I cast you off. You realize that's not your fault. That's the first and most important thing that you have to remember. It's not your fault. They are placing you in a position where they are attempting to emotionally blackmail you to line up with them. So agree with me on this issue or else, or what? Or there will be a penalty. What's that? I'll cut you off out of my life. Is that genuine, healthy love? Not even close. I would assume, and I'm walking in the dark here, but I've got a little bit of experience. I would assume this is a tough love tactic on the part of your mother. This is her way of trying to push you back into the faith, or into the fold, into the flock. She may not even realize the implications of what she is saying. For her, this is just a necessary thing to help protect you from hell. But you need to understand that this is not your fault, and that pursuing the truth on your terms does not make you broken. And that if someone cuts you out of their life over a disagreement, that may, sadly, unfortunately, may be a fact of life that you cannot control if you are going to live your life honestly. So are you willing to sell out your own value system, your own quest for the truth, whatever that is, to keep people happy? And I understand why some people do it. They want to keep the peace, so they just shut their mouths and go along. It's, in my opinion, a miserable way to live. Which is saying something, because families can cause a lot of misery. I just want to see you live your life, not hers. And if someone would cast you off for disagreeing on the subject of God, even a critical subject like God, faith, whatever, eternity, if someone would cast you off, that's not your fault. It's not about you. That is an indictment of them. And there's a part of me that thinks they don't deserve you, but I'm not going to go quite that far, because I don't. There are probably a lot of angles to this story. Just live your life, not hers. Okay. Oh, forgive me. Demi posted. She said, "My mom needs me. I am in tears. I don't want to lose my mom. She needs me." This is still not your fault. She needs you for physical care. She needs you for emotional support. She needs you because you're the only child. Now, none of this changes your right to have boundaries. Okay? None of that changes, Demery. If she is delusional and maybe suffering from some affliction, she needs the emotional support of having the daughter there that she is threatening to cast off for disagreement. And you have siblings and they don't believe anymore either. I think you can be you and still give emotional support. I mean, to a degree. And if she forces you out, that's on her, isn't it? If she needs emotional support, you should be able to be there for her and give her emotional support. If she says, "I need emotional support, by the way, you're broken and I'm going to cast you off," it's her fault. That's on her. And some advice coming in on the chat room, and I'll let that feed for just a few in case Demery wants some wisdom, perhaps from people who have a better perspective than I do. But in my mind, I'm like, I want families to connect as much as anybody, but families can be tough. They can be tough. My own father's blocked. My dad lost his phone privileges. They're having a get-together on Saturday. I'm not even going to go. I don't even want to go. Why bother? And there's just going to be, that sort of undercurrent of judgment and shame in the room. Ugh. I'll go hang with people who accept me on my own terms. Renegade, you're very kind. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll attempt a Twitch stream a little later on. I'm going to have to do a little work on the speeches for September for Milwaukee, Chicago, and Minneapolis. And in the meantime, I appreciate you watching and listening. I appreciate the donations and support. If you want to be a patron, I appreciate those as well. Patreon.com/Seth Andrews. And if you're looking for a way to support me, my work, whatever, Ghost Stories, the audiobook, audible.com. I'd sure like to see that sucker hit the bestsellers and make some waves out there. So I'll be shameless. Buy the damn book, please. Audible.com, Ghost Stories, Seth Andrews. Michael Smith, thank you very much. Check out Lucius when I'm done with RE7. Lucius? There's a game called Lucius. I'll go take a look. In the meantime, you and yours take care. I'll see you at the next one.